Okay, we have season 5, episode 1 coming up. Season 5, again, it's one of, to me, it's sort of heyday of Red Green. I feel like the show is starting to find its footing a little bit. Last week we did season 4, and we saw a lot of the characters that we sort of know from then on. A lot of the characters that started in season 4 stuck. And the show is starting to look familiar to people who knew it from sort of later seasons. And season 5 is along similar lines. It's not as drastic a change from the previous season as season 4 was from season 3, and certainly not as much as season 3 was from season 2. But there are some changes to it, which we're going to see tonight. Raccoon says, did Red Green ever make a submarine? I believe Red made a submarine out of a propane tank. Did he make a one-man sub? Or as a hot water heater? Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, but I'm really excited about season 5 tonight. If you watched the stream last week, season 4, I'll just do like a quick recap. I don't have as much to say before the episode this week, so I'm sure you'll be happy about that. But season 4, if you remember, the show had not been renewed once again. And so no one wanted to do it. And so we actually had to purchase airtime on Global. So rather than a broadcaster giving us money to make the show, we made the show and then we bought airtime on their station. And the plan was to sell commercials. Hey, we just got a subscriber, Coffee Rings. Thank you so much for that subscription. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Feel free to use your new red green tape emote in chat. Very kind. Thank you very much. But yeah, so last week we were saying we had to purchase the airtime and then sell commercials. We were going to go and sell commercials for our own show to then use that money to pay back Global. Well, we didn't sell enough commercials, and we didn't have enough money to pay the crew and pay Global. And so my dad ended up taking a second mortgage out on his own house and paid all for those things out of his own pocket, which is never good to have to do that, but he did. But the good news kind of at the end of that was that went so well, and the show did well enough on Global that Global renewed for season 5 without us having to purchase time anymore. They became the broadcaster of the show. So for this season, we had a home and we had a budget, and away we went. And season 6 was the same before eventually season 7 is when we started on the CBC in Toronto, and that's when the budget really started kind of getting bumped up. Christopher Gamblin, thank you so much for the subscription as well. Really appreciate that. Very, very nice. Ricky Biss says, one of the things that impressed me about the show were the outdoor shots, some beautiful backgrounds and scenery behind the red green mayhem and foolery. I agree, Ricky Biss. I think it was a lot of the scenes were pretty beautiful outside. Some of them were just southern Ontario, Hamilton, Burlington area. Some of them were up in the Muskokas. Some of the shots you're going to see in tonight's episode. There's in the adventure film, I think there's some big rock sort of formations in it that are pretty obviously Muskoka to anyone who's been up there in their life, which is not quite northern Ontario, but for a Toronto Hamilton person, it's north. So it's a couple hours north of us, and a lot of really beautiful scenes. Just one last thing to mention, what to look out for. There's a new character, new sketches and things, which I'll kind of pause when we get to them. But for now, there is a new opening. Once again, for season 5, they kind of mess with it. You might remember season 4, it would start and Red was like fishing off a dock, and he would talk to the camera, and then it would launch into the new Red Green show opening. This is the first season they dropped that, and now it starts right with Harold saying it's the new Red Green show, and they actually do a little bit of a lobby scene before they launch the new Red Green show opening. I feel like in this, and again, season 4, if you remember last week, it was the start of the midlifes where Red sits at the desk and he's tying the fly, and he has a couple minutes to sort of talk one-on-one to the audience kind of thing. It almost felt to me like when those midlife started, it made Red opening having some time with just him talking sort of redundant. So maybe this year they went to, let's just start with some high energy. Let's use that pop of the crowd to sort of start the show off on a little bit higher energy level. And Red still has his time talking to us in the midlifes. So we don't really need that time off the top anymore. So there is a new opening. Pay attention to that. And there's a couple awesome things coming up, couple first-time segments, and some pretty cool moments in this episode. I hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to let it play. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in chat. Make sure you put @RedGreenJuniorTV in front of it if you want me to answer. That way I'll actually see it. Otherwise, the chat goes by too quick and I usually miss your questions. But without further ado, here we go. The opening of Season 5, Episode 1. I hope you enjoy.
It's the new Red Green Show! And now, here's the man who said, "Stop the world! I want to get a hot dog." Your host, my uncle, Red Green! Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Boy, this is an exciting time at Possum Lodge this week because tonight is Men's Night on the Mountain. Has anybody told the mountain? No, don't listen to him. I'll tell you, this is a fantastic time. This is a time to kind of cut loose. We forget about our responsibilities and all our cares, and we go right up the mountain. Real old tradition in this area. Dates way back hundreds of years ago, when in the spring, men would go up on top there, and they'd watch out over the rivers to make sure that there was no flooding, from the spring runoff and so on. And there's also, I gotta be honest, there's a male bonding side to it. It's an awful lot of fun. It's just men up on the mountain looking out over a raging river. Why? So it's like just a bunch of you guys sitting up on Rock Reef Point staring down at Mercury Creek? Not a real mountain, not a real river, not real men. Well, all right, Harold, if it's not real men, I guess you'll be able to come. Really? Yeah, really? I could go? Yeah? Oh, okay, well, okay. All right, Like, my usual disdain for your, destructive testosterone-induced craziness seems to be overridden by my incredible desire to be accepted by the group. Maybe you are a real man. Hey, we got some new stuff to show you. Garth Horrible, animal control, new guy at the lodge. I'm gonna make something out of a shopping cart. We got a new game called 2 on a Match I think you're going to enjoy. And don't forget, it's Men's Night on the Mountain. Well, I tell you, Men's Night on the Mountain was a huge success, as usual. A little hard on the back, but I'm not as young as I used to be. Just had the one incident, really. Harold, unfortunately, fell off the cliff wearing my backpack. Well, I was afraid there was going to be some serious injuries there. We were laughing that hard, Well, did you have a good time there, young fella? No! Only the worst time of my life. Oh, come on, Harold. Doesn't get any better than this. Hey, this is our one night to go crazy there. Crazy? Yeah. It was boring. Boring? Boring. What are you talking about? Oh, we got about 12 feet up the hill, and everybody else is too tired to go any further. Professor Hatfield had to go home and get his medication. No one else could get the fire lit. Oh, spring runoff, Harold. Spring runoff. Yeah, spring runoff. Everything's wet. Yeah, everything's not wet. It was just so boring. It was incredibly terrible out there. Everybody's complaining all the time. Oh, it's too dark. It's too damp. Oh, I got a soaker. Come on. Moose Thompson was asking everybody if they brought an extra sweater. It was boring. It was incredible. No dirty jokes, no scary stories. Just a bunch of middle-aged fat guys sitting around a dead fire on hemorrhoid cushions. I'm sorry, Uncle Red, but you always say, tell me what's on your mind. No, I don't. I say, tell me what's wrong with your mind. Look out below. Bill's practicing for a new event for our Men's Night on the Mountain. Cliff diving. He's just getting warmed up. You okay, Bill? Okie dokie, this is the big one.
Just pause it right there real quick. This is the first ever Possum Lodge word game. Although at the time it was called Two on a Match, so it's not actually, I guess, the word game yet. But this is the first time it was ever done on an episode of the Red Green Show, and as you know, it went so well that every single episode from here on in had one of these in it because they just were so popular, and it gave, I think, the writers a chance to really write some funny bits and some interesting bits. And I think this one is actually a very good one. It's Dalton Humphrey, the Bob Bainbro character, doing it, and I hope you really enjoy it. So yeah, number one, it's the first one, but also number two, you'll notice that something a little bit different about it, because it was so early on. The Harold character who's hosting is not actually going to say the word. He will hold up the paper and just mouth the word, which is how we did it originally. But we got a fan mail actually from a blind person who said, could you please say the word so that when I'm watching the show, I can hear it, so then I can get the jokes, because the jokes don't make sense unless you kind of know what the word is. So we changed the format so that we said the word every time, and that caused us to have to change. The contestant had to obviously plug their ears, which became an instruction at that time as well. So this is the first one, and it is a saying the word out loud version. Here we go.
And for a free wash and hot wax at Larry's Barber Shop, Uncle Red, you have 30 seconds to get Mr. Humphrey to say this word. 30 seconds and go. All right, aware.
Sober.
Touchy.
Philly.
Touchy-feely.
Richard Simmons.
Compared to you, your wife is more...
Overweight.
Emotionally, she's more...
Weepy. Weepy. She's weepy.
No. I'm saying she notices things more because she's...
Picky.
You're almost out of time, Uncle Red. All right, Dalton. You would never say to your wife that she's picky, overweight, or weepy because...
Castration.
Dalton, the vertical hold on your television set...
Sensitive.
Oh, Duffy's joints were loose and loud. You'd swear they all were breaking. He'd twist his knuckles and crack his knees. He sounded like a popcorn maker. He'd snap his back and ripple his spine, do it all with a big stupid grin. Then he slipped and fell 300 feet under a rock. And that was the last crack we heard from him.
Garth Horrible here, Animal Control, with a tip on how to deal with a common house.
All right, I'll pause that really quickly as well. This is the first time we ever see Garth Horrible, another Super Day animal control officer, played by Derek McGrath. And for me, as a young person, I didn't really know at the time when Gordon Pinsent came on, for instance, as Hap Shaughnessy. I didn't really know who that was. Graham Greene, I still hadn't seen Dances with Wolves at this time, so I knew he was a big actor, but I didn't really recognize him. This was maybe the first time somebody came on our show, and I was like, it's the dude from My Secret Identity, which was this terrible show when I was a kid, but I loved it. And I remember being on set here with Derek McGrath. This is up in Muskoka as well. Actually, this scene, this house is at the same, I believe it's at the same marina where we filmed all of Glenn Braxton's marina stuff, like the lazy marina owner. This was like the house that was up the hill a little bit from the actual marina. And so we shot this stuff with Garth up here. And really enjoyed it. And he was a really funny guy. It's the character is not exactly the same as Ed Frid. If you know Ed Frid, who was kind of the next iteration of an animal control officer in later seasons. Garth wasn't as scared of animals the way Ed Frid's character was. Garth was more injury prone. He always had some horror stories, and he just it was almost like he hated his job, but he didn't have the same fear as Ed Frid had in some of those later stuff. But interesting, someone just asked, I think it was Paladin Frost asked about when earlier on in seasons, the theme of the show would sometimes be carried over into all the different bits. In other words, whatever the lobby scene story segment was, then the adventure or the handyman or the other things would also fit into that storyline. This season, that actually didn't happen. We started to just, this was just shot, and it wasn't known whether this was going to be the first one or not. And if you notice, when you listen to this, keep your ears open. Red's going to come in and say to Garth, oh, look, you don't have an injury today. Kind of like, what's going on? And I think that's because we didn't know that this one was going to be put in the first episode yet. And I think the character was supposed to, establish that he got injuries all the time before that comment would make any sense. But I think what my dad tended to do was whichever ones he thought were the funniest segments, so the funniest handyman, the funniest adventures, the funniest experts, the funniest word games, the funniest Garth Horrible segments would get loaded into the front half of the season, because that's when we needed our ratings to be at the best. That's when the critics were talking about it, because that's when broadcasters made decisions about renewing for the next season. So we kind of front loaded the seasons so that they had the best stuff in them, and it didn't always make logistic sense or whatever. And also we couldn't make it for a certain theme because we weren't always sure which handyman or which whatever was going to turn out the best after editing. So my dad started just making them autonomously, independently, and they could drop into any episode. Gino says, I noticed the joke about castration. I'm unfamiliar with the censorship laws in Canada. How much could you guys get away with? And were there any jokes that were cut for being too raunchy or risque? Gino, that's a good question. I can't recall ever having anything being cut for being too raunchy. That's a good question for my dad, though. Being on the creative team for all 15 seasons, he would know that better than I did. It felt from our side like there weren't as many eyes on that before CBC, so before season 7, as there was from season 7 on. But yeah, I mean, we had to submit episodes to broadcasters a certain amount in advance so that they could screen them. So nothing went on the air that, it wasn't live, and nothing went on the air that wasn't sort of approved by the broadcaster. But I can't recall ever having to reshoot anything. I can't recall that ever happening. So I'm guessing we were always within the parameters that we needed to be. Yesterday I saw an animated version of Corner Gas. Any chance of an animated Red Green? We actually pitched an animated sort of spin-off of Red Green called Planet Harold when the show ended. And it was going to be around sort of a reboot and around Harold's years in high school, like a 3D cartoon version of that, where he's comes home and Red is kind of where he is on the weekends. He lives with Uncle Red at the lodge, so we still have lodge stuff happening, but then he goes to school, and it's about his trials and tribulations at high school. But it didn't get picked up, so what are you gonna do? Maybe we'll have to try again. Okay, let's get back to it. Here's Garth Horrible. Remember, listen for Red's comment, and now hopefully it will make sense to you. All right, here we go.
Common household pest. Speaking of which, come on in here, Red.
Very funny, very funny. Oh, Garth, you got no serious injury today. Slow week, huh?
Well, yeah, see, Red, I've taken sick leave.
Oh.
Yeah. After that spider bite, I started falling down all over the place, and I managed to flatten a little parakeet. When the boss found out, he sent me home for a week. Poor little parakeet.
Yeah. You have a tip for us at all?
Huh?
You have a tip for us at all today, Garth?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Red,
Yeah.
do you know what a vole is?
A vole? Yes, I do. It's like a little mouse, I believe.
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
Except that the vole hides under your lawn. And don't you know, he eats the roots of your grass and your plants.
Oh, yeah.
So what I've done, I've located the two entrances into the vole's tunnel. And I shove a paper bag into the first hole.
Oh, yeah, I see that
And
now.
into this second hole, I've got this plastic tubing.
Sure, yeah. Mhm.
Now, what do you suppose I do next?
Well, I would think you'd pump in the methane at this point.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, Red.
Oh.
No! I don't do that.
All right.
No, I'm going to blow very hard into this plastic tubing, so hard that the vole is going to pop out the other side into that plastic bag. Isn't that great?
Well, now, that is great. That is great.
All right, now, you run over there, and when the vole comes out, why, you snatch it. Snatch that vole.
Hey, this is fun. Vole snatching could really catch on up at the lodge.
Really?
Well, maybe. All right, blow away there, Garth.
All right, we'll give her a blast.
All right. You must have it, Garth. What? Oh. This is fun.
Oh, boy. Another super day.
What Harold doesn't understand about men's night on the mountain is that you get to a certain age where you're just not prepared to give up the creature comforts. So I thought I would take this week's Handyman Corner and show you how you can satisfy man's two basic fundamental needs. Number one, a comfy chair to sit on, and number two, junk food. So go on out to your grocery store and pick up your favorite snacks. Just like this. Oh yeah, and make sure you bring the cart with you too. Don't worry about taking it with you. The store doesn't mind. They factor the cost of the cart into... Whoa, come back here. It's into the price of their groceries. Besides, if they... Oh, gosh. Floors are a little uneven at the lodge here. Besides, if they fill the cart up with groceries, surely they don't expect you to carry the whole thing home. All right. All right, now step two, we want to cut down the sides of the front here so we can fold that thing down and just grab a saw here and get at that. There we go. That's the comfort aspect taken care of. Now we can start taking a look at safety. You know, we got this... Whoa. Got this big hole in the ozone for people that everything good in life has to be sprayed out of a can. So now we got to worry about that. And I got this window here, which I'm going to mount on top of the unit. Got a blind on there, so it now becomes a variable angle UV deflector. Even got a screen on here to keep the bugs out. So I'll just mount this whole rig on here with these 2x2s. Oh, yeah. Your snacks hung on there. Now, of course, you fold these things up, you know, for traveling, but when you arrive where you want to be, you just swing them open and get comfortable. Not that easy to do. There you are, huh? Sitting pretty with all of life's treasures right here at your fingertips. You get a little bit thirsty, you say? Well, hook up one of these plastic hoses to a bottle that's above your head, and it's even a gravity feed. When people say you suck, you can prove otherwise. So remember, if women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. Uh-oh. Oh, well, I'll have something to eat while I'm waiting for the ambulance. If you're looking for reasons not to go bungee jumping, stay tuned for Buzz Sherwood.
I'll just pause that really quick again. I saw a comment. Somebody said, I think it was Raccoon said, Dave, do you have like a compilation of the campfire songs, like a sing-along or something? So first of all, we sell at our store, redgreenshop.com. You can buy a zip file. You get like a download, and it has in like MP3 format every single campfire song they ever performed on the show. So we sell those, redgreenshop.com. That's a shameless plug. Go check it out. They're pretty cheap. But I still have copies of the old school. We don't sell these anymore. But the old school Possum Lodge poem and campfire songs. You can't really see that. This is volume 2. And when you asked that question, just reminded me that I had them here. And I thought, you know, I would just pause for a quick sec and read you one. So we can all kind of reminisce together about the kind of quality that we used to get from the Possum Lodge poem and campfire songs. This one is called My Daddy. And when I used to host the Red Green audiences live at live tapings, this is one that I would often read. It goes like this. My daddy. My daddy was a poor sharecropper. He worked at the stock exchange. We couldn't afford windows, but we had a door that opened a few inches. I remember the day he died. He called me to his side and said, "Who the hell are you?" That was a disappointment. So that's the kind of quality stuff you can get in our Possum Lodge poem and campfire song books. Thank you for reminding me of that, Raccoon. Okay, here we go.
Well, our night on the mountain got us all thinking, and I hate to admit that Harold's right, but it is possible that we have lost our manhood maybe through marriage or some other accident in the workplace.
Well, you don't need foolish stunts to prove you're a man. Just act responsibly towards fellow human beings.
Get serious, Harold. So now we're going to do something really manly.
By manly, do you mean being good fathers, good husbands, being good providers?
Where do you get this stuff, anyway? No, we were thinking of maybe going whitewater rafting on Mercury Creek. The problem there is that the whitewater is actually chemical foam, you know. And you really don't want to be out in the middle of Dead Man's Whirlpool and have the river eat the rubber right off your pontoons.
You know, Gandhi was a great man, and so was Albert Schweitzer. They didn't need foolish stunts to prove they were men.
No, but they weren't lodge members, Harold, all right? So we decided to go cliff diving off a rock reef point. I got the application form right here. Really only 2 rules. Number 1, you got to promise to go right off the top. And number 2, you got to do your best to try and hit the water. Want me to sign you up there, Harold?
No, I don't think so. No, never, no.
Good, good. That proves it's for men only.
Proves it's for men like you only.
We're a dying breed, Harold.
Coincidence? I don't think so.
Garth Horrible here, Animal Control. Reminding you that wild animals can smell fear. Of course, if it smells bad enough, why, they won't eat you. Hey, I'm alive.
Now you're gonna pay for this until the moon passes China.
Oh, boy. She comes home from work stressed to tears and blubbers out the 5 words that no man understands. I just want to be held.
And just because they were coming to the end of the break between Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, you tried to substitute a hug for a held.
No. A little 5-second hug, don't you know that 15 seconds is the absolute minimum for I just want to be held?
That extra 10 seconds is going to be the difference between the couch and the garage.
Oh, yeah, forget all about the bed. Oh, yeah, and you know what? You could have held her for 15 seconds if you'd have just used your head. All you had to do is tilt her a little bit to the side, and then you could have seen Jeopardy right over her shoulder.
You could have watched the whole half hour, but you weren't thinking, were you?
No. So now it's time for a quick fix. And the best thing is to claim that you feel a little something coming on and you didn't want to pass the bug on to her.
Or if you think you're up to the acting challenge, you can jump back with a startled look on your face and say, "Have you lost weight?" All right, now, whatever you do in the great outdoors, always remember safety first. Right, Buzz?
Oh, you got that right, Red.
Yeah.
You know, just because you saw somebody on TV doing something like, say, bungee jumping, doesn't mean you can just go out and do it yourself.
No, now, Buzz, tell the viewers at home, what do you think the professional bungee jumper would do first?
Well, I bet the first thing they do is they go out and find something really stable for jumping off.
Oh, yeah, like maybe that giant pine tree there?
Well, you know, in hindsight, you'd think that, Red, but, you know, I found out that giant pines aren't that great for bungee jumping off of.
All right, that's good. And what about power lines? I guess you make sure there's none of them around. Huh?
Oh, for sure. You know, I honestly thought I could clear those ones, but me and Gravity, we never did get along. Oh, and don't go making your bungee cord out of stuff around the house. You know,
Right.
Don't go using old suspenders or spandex bike pants or elastics or, what else did I use, Red?
Well, I see pantyhose, polo pajamas, and a bunch of jock straps.
Right. Yeah, don't go using any of those.
No, so maybe what we should say is, if you want to go bungee jumping, go where they have bungee jumping, right? Where they have the right equipment and professional supervision.
Yeah. Well, we'll say that now.
Yeah. Always remember, safety first.
Oh, safety first.
Yeah, safety first.
So you cut me down now, Red?
Have they turned the power off yet? No.
You know, I just thought they were telephone wires. I'm thinking, how much electricity's in a telephone wire?
So, Uncle Red, how many people have signed up for the cliff diving contest?
No, Harold, I'll tell you that none of the men were motivated to sign up until I added a spectator gallery and handed out free tickets to all the wives and girlfriends and even the contestants for the Possum Lake Miss Teen pageant.
What? All the Miss Teen pageant people, girls are gonna be there?
Yeah. Except for Miss Congeniality. She was just a little too bubbly for our crowd. But, you know, knowing that the women were going to be there really got the men interested in showing off their manhood. I think it's safe to say that anybody who's not cliff diving is probably not a real man. Hey, Handyman. You know, I know a lot of the power commercials come with a button on the side so that you can lock them in the on position, but I wouldn't advise it. Well, as I tried to warn you earlier in the show, this week's Adventures with Bill, Bill's gonna try and work his way... Yeah, nice dive, Bill. Bill's gonna try and work his way up to the cliff diving contest, so he thought he'd just try diving off the dock there and must have hit something that he'd eaten. Now this chair here, he thought he'd get up on the chair and dive, which I wasn't too excited about. That's a family heirloom. It's been in my family since the trailer burned down. Come off the edge there. Oh, he wouldn't mind. He needed me to hold the... Oh. Well, thank you, Bill. Bill. Oh, boy. So, going well, as usual. Anyway, I got the chair all fixed up. No, that was a waste of time. All right, so now what Bill's going to do, next step up, next phase 3, I guess, is to go off the ladder. To me, I'm noticing, boy, he's got that ladder awfully close to the edge, and we do try to be a little bit safety conscious, as you know, up here, or at least conscious, up here at the lodge, and I'm saying to Bill, get her right back, but, you know, the thing with safety is, you know, you can be actually too safe, and... Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, we may have pulled her back a little too far. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But anyway, for whatever reason, maybe because he banged his head or whatever, he's decided he's now ready to attack the cliff up at Rock Reef Point. So he's gonna need the rope, yeah, and he wants me, yeah, all right. Well, at this point, I kind of want to see how it turns out. And I hope you do too. Now, the thing with Rock Reef Point, it's just a beautiful piece of geography up there. It's, of course, got the inside the reef, and there, I was a little tired of that. Anyway, but then there's the rock, and there's the reef, as I mentioned, and then there's a point. You don't see the point unless you get a close-up of Bill's head, but now he's gonna, too hard. I just throw this up. They had a small loop, but the loop was too small on the rope to hook around the stump, and we were trying to use the rope to pull ourselves up. But, you know, every rope has two ends. It's on the other end is a much bigger loop. This is gonna work great, we think, and Bill's real good with the ropes and so on. There we go. Look at that. Unbelievable. So he's all set, and up we go, and I'm starting to see why mountain climbing is so dangerous. Anyway, we get up there, and finally get up to the top hill. That was a heck of a climb, and I thought, gee, you know, what I should do is pull that rope up there and get that out of his way, and because what I'd forgotten was, you see, that the rope still had that small loop on the end. Bill has kind of an unorthodox approach to his dives. No, he's ready. And unfortunately, this foot went into that small loop, and now the problem is the rope is not as long as his dive.
Welcome to the expert part.
I was going to pause it there real quick. That was an excellent cliff diving episode, and people in chat talking about going to camp, summer camp, and cliff jumping. I remember jumping off. It wasn't a cliff. It was like kind of what we just saw there. It was sort of a big rock. I remember jumping off one when I went to camp when I was a kid, and my cabin leader, I didn't know, but he jumped off the higher level than I did just before I jumped. We didn't communicate. And while I was in the air, he landed on me. So I'm in the air, like I jumped off, and I'm going down towards the water, and these legs come right over my shoulders. And I'm like, what the frig? And he was like sitting on my head in the air and pushed my head down, and I hit the water face down, and I literally couldn't move in the water. I was like paralyzed in the water for like 15 seconds. And he swam me over to the shore and was all freaked out, and then I was fine. But cliff diving is still kind of a nightmare of mine because of that moment. So thank you for bringing that up, chat. This is not the first experts. We've been doing experts for a number of seasons now. But this is a very famous experts in the red-green world, because it's very rare that on this show we would do sort of pop culture references. I think it's part of why the show was able to last as long as it was, and in reruns and so on. There wasn't a lot of things that dated the show to specific time periods, other than the mullets. But this is one of those opportunities where we had a big-time actor, Graham Greene, in a segment, and he got the nod with the script to talk about pop culture a little bit and kind of meta a little bit throughout this segment. And it's probably one of my favorite experts that we ever did. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to shut up and let us all have a good laugh at this experts. Here we go.
Expert portion of the show. On this week's expert portion of the show, we have experts. My Uncle Red and his good friend, Edgar Montrose. First letter goes as follows. Alrighty, dear experts, I took my children to a movie recently, and I was disgusted by the language and the nudity. And that was just in the car beside us. The movie was far too violent for children or seniors or anyone who hadn't spent time in either prison or the Navy. How can we in Hollywood to clean up its act? Signed, offended.
Well, I agree with this viewer. I'm telling you, my wife Bernice dragged me out to see that Mary Poppins a few years ago. Man, talk about offensive. I thought I was going to get diabetes. They started singing that supercalonarcoleptic extra halitosis. I just about lost my licorice nibs.
I'll tell you what's wrong with movies. They give the kids a false sense of reality. Like that movie Speed when the bus blew up. You never get that much flame. They showed it as a big fireball, but a real bus explosion is all smoke and mirrors. I know, I was the mechanic at a bus company for a couple of days.
Well, I would like to caution our viewer, there have been some great movies made that are both educational and uplifting.
Yeah, in the old days. Like The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Did you see that baby go up at the end? And the train went crashing into the river? Won an Oscar for Best Picture. But that one now, Bridges of Madison County. I waited for one of those bridges to go up, but nothing. And I wasn't the only one disappointed. Everybody in the theater was crying by the end. Movies today just don't deliver.
I do have to disagree with you because there have been some great films made. You know, like Forrest Gump, The Piano, Dances with Wolves.
I saw that one. Now, the native guy was okay. Should have got the Oscar. But the rest of it was a yawn. Now, what they needed there is one of those buffalo that get backed up with methane. He'll catch his hoof on a piece of flint. Grenade. Kaboom! Talk about your burgers to go.
All right, something's going on with my episode playback here. So I think I'm just going to take a quick second and close it and reopen it, because sometimes that seems to happen with my episodes. I don't really know why. Let me just get us back to that spot. Apologies. Let's say we were about
Bus
there.
blew up. You never get that much flame.
Good enough.
They showed it as a big fireball, but a real bus explosion is all smoke and mirrors. I know, I was the mechanic at a bus company for a couple of days.
Well, I would like to caution our viewer, there have been some great movies made that are both educational and uplifting.
Yeah, in the old days. Like The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Did you see that baby go up at the end? And the train went crashing into the river? Won an Oscar for Best Picture. But that one now, Bridges of Madison County. I waited for one of those bridges to go up, but nothing. And I wasn't the only one disappointed. Everybody in the theater was crying by the end. Movies today just don't deliver.
I do have to disagree with you because there have been some great films made. You know, like Forrest Gump, The Piano, Dances with Wolves.
I saw that one. Now, the native guy was okay. Should have got the Oscar. But the rest of it was a yawn. Now, what they needed there is one of those buffalo that get backed up with methane. He'll catch his hoof on a piece of flint and go off like a big furry grenade. Kaboom! Talk about your burgers to go.
Harold! Come here, give me that manual. Give me that manual. Look at that, all-terrain vehicles, sand, gravel, lakes. What? Frozen lakes. Oh, frozen Okay, I might have jumped the gun a bit on that. What time do we have to get it back to the rental place?
Little advice for any planning some kind of an event for your next family reunion. I would suggest you don't make it a cliff diving contest.
These are real men. You want to know what real men do? They climb to the top of Rock Reef Point in a selection of bathing suits you do not want to see on a full stomach. And each and every one of them chickened out. So a bunch of the women, they climbed up to the top of the point, and started diving off just to show up the men.
I knew we were in trouble when Moose Thompson's mother did a belly flop from the top of Rock Reef Point. Man, it brought the house down and part of the lodge, actually. Boy, did she hit the water. Port Asbestos hasn't had that much rain in 12 years.
Well, it only goes to prove, I guess, there's no real men left in these parts.
Well, yeah, there are, but a lot of them are women, unfortunately.
That's meeting time, Uncle Red.
Yeah, you go get dried off, Harold.
Yeah.
I'll kind of meet you down there. If my wife is watching, I'll be coming straight home after the meeting, and I'm hoping maybe you can make the neighbors come over another night, Maybe I'm not a real man, but I am real tired and not real interested in being real sociable. To the rest of you, thanks for watching. On behalf of myself and Harold and the whole gang up here at Possum Lodge, keep your stick on the ice. Quando, Omni, Flunkus, Moritati. All right, get up, Harold. Harold has something he wanted to say to all you guys while you're all here, rather than going around and apologizing.
For more information on Red, Green, and Possum Lodge merchandise, call 1-800-Y-POSSUM or find us on the internet at www.redgreen.com.
All right. That ends the episode. Now, I did want to just show one last thing. And we're actually going to do a giveaway as well tonight. So please stick around if you're interested in some free red-green stuff. But, a lot of people ask me, or come into chat and say, hey, that show looks like it was really fun to work on. And wasn't that, you got, when you're growing up as a teenager, you got to work on set. That must have been a blast. And it was. It was a blast, but I wanted to tonight just give you a little bit of a taste. I found this picture. I want to give you a little bit of taste of what it was like sometimes for us behind the scenes, okay? Because it wasn't all, Hollywood and bright lights, okay? So this is a picture of I believe so, season 5. On the right is Sandy Richardson, our production manager. I've talked about her before. On the left is a guy named Rick Arsenault, who's one of our cameramen. And the middle is a guy named Harry Carson, who's also one of our cameramen. And in the summertime, when we were shooting the show, it was usually quite warm, nice hot Canadian summers. And sometimes guys like Harry would take off their shirts, to kind of stay cool. And this was the kind of body and view that I would get all day, most days. And I realized the camera, it didn't show the other side of Harry, but believe me, the amount of hair is very similar to the front. So you're not missing anything. So, it wasn't all glam, okay? There was a lot of men who were hairy and gross. And that was part of being on the crew as well.